Hello, everyone, and welcome to the BuzzStream podcast. My name is Vince Nero, and today I am joined by Thea Chippendale. Thanks so much for joining us, Thea.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you all may know Thea from the PR Insider newsletter, which is a great resource for anyone in the PR space. I highly recommend checking it out, subscribing. I'll put a link in the show notes. Thea, you have been kind of around in the digital PR space for a bit here. You were at an agency, you were at MediaVision and Rise at 7. And then you made the switch to being a freelancer. I want to talk a little bit about that because I saw kind of recently, we're recording this August 9th. Recently, you had reached your 1 year mark as a freelancer. I mean, you had some fantastic things to say about it, some learnings, and I really want to dig into that because I think people can really take a lot out of this. But before that, some people may know you from going viral yourself, and I'd love to know a little bit about what it's like to be on the other side of a campaign, as if I can call it that. We talked briefly before we started, and you said you've gone viral more than once. The only one that I know is, this Tinder thing. You were wearing a dress and somebody had some stupid things to say about it, and I'll let you tell the story you want. So I'll throw it to you. Let's hear about you going viral.
The first time I went viral was just after, I think it was just after I finished university. And yeah, like you said, I'd uh, had this experience on Tinder. I was wearing a dress that I just worn to a wedding, and this guy made some pretty awful comments about it. I think he was, in the grand scheme of things, I think he was just trying to get a rise out of me, but I took it very personally. So I decided I put it on Twitter. At that time, it was when Twitter was used more as a personal thing for me, so it was more just for, my friends. I thought, "Oh, let's show my friends what's happened." And all of a sudden, it kind of blew up and everybody was retweeting it, talking about it, and then all of a sudden, I was getting journalists in my inbox wanting to talk to me about it, wanting some, exclusive comments from me. And bearing in mind, I hadn't worked in PR before, so I didn't know what all this stuff was happening and what was gonna end up, happening, and, I feel like it just got syndicated across so many different publications. I was asked to go on the radio, which I've never done before, which I still to this day refuse to listen back on because I hate listening back to my
Yeah, I
voice.
never listen to my podcasts if I can't help it.
So that was my first experience of going viral, and it was actually one of the reasons why I ended up working at Rise at 7 because Carrie Rose, who is the CEO and founder of Rise at 7, she went viral for talking about me going viral. So she'd reposted it on her Twitter and went viral again from reposting about the story. Because it was basically how I've just realized I've left out a massive part of it, which was how ASOS responded to it, because it was an ASOS dress. So ASOS basically, saw that I'd said that it was a dress from ASOS, and basically, obviously on Tinder, I've not been on Tinder in ages. If you swipe a certain way, then that's you saying yes to it or the yes to the person. And so they put my picture on the second row of the actual product on the ASOS website as some cool PR marketing kind of thing on top of it, and I think that's when it went another level of viral because people were like, "Oh my god, ASOS responded. This is great PR from ASOS. This is a great campaign." And still to this day, I get people asking me about it, and people still think it was some kind of PR stunt from ASOS. People don't realize that it was really my life. It was yeah, it was interesting, but yeah, that's how I ended up actually getting into PR, was going viral.
Yeah, that's what was going to be my follow-up question. I mean, that's got to be super inspiring to kind of see that roll out and be like, hey, I could probably do this for other people, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I remember when I first started at Rise, Carrie and Will, who worked there, were like, put the ASOS picture as your email. So when you're sending it out to journalists, they'll see your picture and be like, oh, that's the ASOS girl. And maybe open the emails a bit more. But
So there was a second time you went viral?
so that was a year ago. And to be fair, it's not the same level as the ASOS one. But it was more a LinkedIn viral situation. And basically I'd seen um something had gone wrong with an intern had put something wrong on something. I can't remember what it fully was. I'm gonna have to quickly Google and find it again. But basically, an intern had done something wrong, and everybody responded to it by putting like "dear intern," and then responded to it saying like something that they'd basically messed up in their career and like it didn't really matter in the things, and somehow managed to get, I think it was like hundreds of thousands of like likes and
I think I remember seeing that now that you say that,
it got
just randomly. I mean, we weren't connected at the time for sure. I must have organically come across that.
yeah, so it got 200, almost 200,000 likes. And it was a HBO intern accidentally sent a mass blank email to thousands of subscribers, and then it was just like a like how the community kinda came together to show that mistakes don't make you who you are kind of thing. Is when you're an intern, you're growing and yeah, everything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's awesome. I mean, I'm sure there's so many learnings in just those two things that you could pull into your career as a digital PR, especially a freelance digital PR. And that's what I wanted to dig into a little bit here. I think one good thing to kind of establish at the beginning, though, is, which I've realized after going through a couple of podcasts like this, is where people kind of delineate traditional PR and digital PR. I know it seems like it's getting a little more messy, right? The crossover between the two, but you have your newsletter, the PR Insider. Can you talk a little bit about where you draw the line between digital PR and traditional PR?
It's a tough question because I think personally, I think we need to stop seeing them as two different things because I think they can each learn from each other and we can learn different things from each strategy. So I actually had somebody on the PR Insider called Becca T. And she talks about like what each like what we can learn from each other, basically what traditional PRs can learn from digital PRs and vice versa. Because in the newsletter, I've started including more traditional campaigns in like creative stunts and everything like that because I think it is kind of vital that we start to learn from each thing because I think without each other, one of them's gonna end up like ceasing to exist or something like that. So I think like traditional PRs should be integrating digital techniques into what they're doing because otherwise you're missing out on a whole demographic. And also at the same time, I think digital PRs tend to lose focus on their like relationships with journalists because it's kind of that like mass produced campaigns that people end up doing. So there's I think it needs to be less of a like a divide between the two and more trying to be a bit of a cohesive like PR rather than
Right. It's just PR.
that's my answer to that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And again, like I think it's important to establish that when we first start because then we can kind of speak the same language throughout the rest of these questions. So let's get into your life as a freelance in PR. You, like I mentioned earlier, you had a great post on LinkedIn where you kind of gave a laundry list of things that you learned, a laundry list of things that you wanted to do more of. And I thought that would be a great head start. And I'll link to that post in the podcast notes. Everybody should check it out. Let's start with one of the things you mentioned, which was just how did you and how would people know when they're ready to become a freelancer?
Um, so I don't think it was a decision that I kind of made lightly. Like I was thinking about it for a while, and I don't think anybody should take advice from anybody else because I think it's definitely a personal thing that you end up going through because it's something that is quite scary. There's a lot of kind of like independence that's like immediately put on you. You don't have a support network like you used to, kind of thing. But for me, I felt like in agencies, I was very much limiting myself somehow. Like I wasn't didn't have the freedom to work on clients that I kind of like wanted to. I didn't have the freedom to do different strategies, and I didn't have time to do things like what like create the PRs insider. If I didn't go freelance, then I wouldn't have had that kind of possibility to have the time to put that all together. So I think for me, I just wanted more freedom, and I think the past year has shown me that that freedom has allowed me to become an even better PR. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a very personal thing when you make that decision to do it because, like I said, there's a lot. As much as people think there's so many positives to it, I do think there's a lot of kind of disadvantages to it and things that are quite tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure, right? Like you said, a lot of people come into freelance for a lot of different reasons. You might get laid off and decide where to go next. I remember running to that myself when I decided to leave Siege Media, and I was we were about to have our first child, and like I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a freelancer and stay at home dad, and like all these things that go with that. It can be a daunting decision to go freelance because, like you said, you lose a lot of that support network, you lose the health benefits, you lose all that kind of stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the support network. You mentioned that in the post, kind of one of the final things, but I thought that really stood out to me. I work from home. I do miss having that community. I mean, we have Slack and stuff, but you mentioned kind of getting together with people and kind of still having a community, even though you work freelance. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I am very, very grateful that I've made a lot of friends through my like times in agencies. Obviously, I feel like agencies, you've kind of have that like support bubble there, and it's come with me throughout my career now. So like the people that I made friends with at Rise at Seven are the people who have created their own agencies now. And I get to like experience them doing some amazing things and still see them on a regular basis. I've got people that I'm still friends with from Media Vision who are based in London. So whenever I fancy going down to London, I get to go see them. So I think there's like my community in terms of seeing people on a regular basis is the community that I've created with like the friends in my previous agencies, but also like going to talks, doing those kind of networking events, I guess, is the way that I've created community in person. But I know that Erica has created this Slack. I know you said Slack channel, and I know it's not technically something like this in person, but Erica created this Slack channel that's just full of freelancers, PR freelancers and SEO freelancers. And that is definitely been something that has been like, I wouldn't have been able to do freelance without because it's literally everybody in there is just so helpful with each other. Wants to help. We pretty much everyone talks there on a daily basis about like struggles, about the industry, about red flag clients, so that everybody kind of like is aware if there's somebody going around that might not be too great, and things like that. So, yeah, there's 2 sides of it really. I've got a really strong network that I've created and a really strong, freelance network that, Erica has managed to create.
Yeah. Do you recommend people go do networking? Like, do you go to events and that sort of thing to build that community if you don't have one?
To be fair, I haven't actually been to an event for the past couple of months, so I'm probably not going to be the best example here. But I have done things like going to Brighton, talking to people there. There was an event that JBH did last year that I went to, getting to talk to people. So like all of the events, I feel like after COVID, people are doing a lot more events now, and I think it's really important, especially for like junior PRs as well, to get out there and network with other people and to listen to the talks because I feel like you always end up learning something, even if it's not necessarily something you were looking to learn, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. I mean, right. You never know what you're gonna pull out from any of these talks, and you might go to a conference or something not really excited about any of the talks, and then you hear one thing that might make all the difference. So I totally agree. One of the other things you talked about were some of the costs. So, you can think of it from the perspective of like the actual like monetary costs, but then there's like time costs. And yeah, I know you spend a lot of time on the PR Insider. I can't imagine how much time it goes into it. I know you have some help at this point too, but let's talk a little bit about the costs. Let's talk about specifically like monetary costs and how you navigate that.
Yeah, it definitely I mean, I said it in the LinkedIn post that I think I was very naive in terms of thinking that I could get away with not, like, buying tools and things like that, that, obviously I was so used to agencies paying for, didn't even realize how much it would cost. Um, but, like, it's fine, like, I've been able to be really, like, specific about the things that I wanted, and obviously I try and get the most out of each tool that I pay for. But other things, I mean, it's like having to pay for accountants, it's having to pay for insurance, like I pay for health insurance, life insurance, business insurance. So there's a lot of insurances that I pay for. And then obviously, even though, so for example, I put it in my LinkedIn post that throughout July, I had a broken laptop. So it got fixed and then it broke again. And then they could they couldn't fix it again. So basically, I've had to buy a whole new laptop. But obviously, there's not like a boss, like a CEO there that's like, "Yeah, just buy another one," kind of thing. It's me. And thankfully, I do have insurance, but it's still like I'm having to pay an excess and everything like that. So I think just, yeah, naively thought that I didn't have to do these kinds of things, but in fact I did. Hmm. But there's also the thing about, obviously, like, the cost of just having annual leave is a lot, even if it's not, like, something that I'm physically paying for. I'm not being paid to go on holiday like you are if you're fully employed, so that's also a cost to me is whenever I wanna take annual leave or anything like that is yeah.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. How do you plan for taking vacation? Is this something where you can double up on clients? Do you put out one big campaign and go on vacation and hope that it does well? Like, how does that work for you?
So, again, I touched upon it in that post. Said that I hadn't really taken off more than a couple of days at a time since I've gone freelance, so I've not had like a full week off. So that has meant that if I was going to take some time off, I could just schedule things in advance. And it has also meant that I've kind of not been switched off when I've been on holiday because I still want to be available just in case something goes wrong and I can quickly be there and like answer a question. So, yeah, I think that's definitely one of the biggest downfalls of being freelance, but I also don't think I put in, like, good strategies or boundaries to have that. Yeah.
I feel like that in itself is a skill, is being able to think ahead enough to do all that kind of stuff. I'm learning that myself. So talk a little bit about like burnout and like I feel like that ties into this like taking time off and
Yeah.
how do you recommend people balance that? I know you talked about this is a goal of yours. So like what are these goals that you've set for yourself? How do you plan to go about battling burnout?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I really love my job and I love doing everything about it, so I don't feel like I'm at a point yet where I could be burnt out because I enjoy doing it, even if it is like a lot of late nights and weekends and things like that. But I think I definitely want to put boundaries in place so that I can be my best self because I feel like when you do overstretch yourself a bit, you end up diluting your skills. Um, so I do think that, and to be fair, I don't actually know what boundaries I'm going to put in place. I just know I need to do them at some point. So that's probably not going to be the best answer to that question. But at the start, I definitely don't think I was very organized with like task management and everything like that. Whereas now I found a pretty good like routine of how I manage my day-to-day tasks and everything like that. So I can be a bit more of, I don't know, sane.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Do you have any specific tools that you recommend that are helpful for freelancers to manage that sort of thing?
So I use a tool called, I think everybody will know what this is, called Notion. I don't know, is it, do you know what that is?
I do, yeah, yeah.
And then I just use the Kanban method, and basically on a monthly basis, I will put in all of what I'm expecting tasks to do, or like my weekly tasks for pretty much everything for clients, for business, for the PR insider, everything like that goes in there. And then on a weekly basis, I basically put like move everything across, and it gives me that kind of like serotonin boost when I put it into good thing. I'm, very bad at keeping focus on things, so I use a tool called Session, which is basically it it's like the Pomodoro method is
Yeah.
and it basically ticks, every some people might hate this, but it ticks in the background for 20 minutes, and it keeps my focus onto things, and then it gives you the opportunity at the end to, like, write notes, and usually what I write in the notes is, like, things that might have distracted me during that session, so then for the next couple, then I know what's, like, my key factors that day that's gonna distract me, and I know to,
Oh,
like
that's nice.
yeah, so and it's a really good time, tracking tool for, like, time that I spend on clients because 'cause I'll just put, like, "Worked on so and so," so then at the end of the month, I can look back and be like, "Oh, yeah, I did that much on that," kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I've struggled with that too. I was just pulling out I have this actual physical timer that I use. It's like a
Oh,
little you can and
oh,
I
that's
just plop it on
cool.
my desk and it buzzes. It was, like a $10
Yeah,
Amazon buy or something, but I have found that exact thing where it's like if something distracts me, I'll write it down. And then when I'm outside of my little timed, whatever, 30-minute time block, and go back and be like, okay, because I feel like you do have to have some of that kind of brain in the PR space, because you have to be on top of stuff. Like, you're looking at a piece of content and
Yeah.
for me, I'm writing BuzzStream content. It's like I'm finding examples, right? And like,
Yeah.
or for you, you're looking at examples all the time, probably for the PR Insider, and like you get inspired, and it's hard to turn that off. So
Yeah.
you just have to find better ways to kind of,
Yeah.
you know,
Manage.
yeah, compartmentalize and what have you. But yeah, I love that. I recommend to everybody, like, keep a separate tab open or something for any cool content that you see, and just, bookmarks or something, throw it in there, have a workflow for that sort of thing that you do get like distracted by, because
Yeah.
yeah, you never know what you're going to find out here. My
No.
timer's going off now. So, okay, I have a feeling the PR Insider is part of this, but let's talk a little bit about like how you market yourself. Because I feel like when you're at an agency, you do have that kind of cushion, if you want to call it, or like comfort that like somebody else is handling the inbound business, right? And like you don't have to go out and market yourself. So let's talk a little bit about how you market yourself as a PR.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's loads of different ways that you can market yourself as a PR. I think always the main strategy is just being a good PR and a nice person. I think you naturally end up getting word of mouth and people recommending you and everything like that. But I do think things like the social media, the LinkedIn, becoming a voice within the industry is also a key factor, because I think as soon as people you on a regular basis, then they'll be your first port of call. Or sorry, you'll be their first port of call whenever they're thinking about that kind of issue that you've maybe talked about. For example, I've all of a sudden got loads of like French PR campaigns coming to me because I do French PR. And I think that's from a word of mouth of people talking about it and uh, like suggesting me to other people. So yeah, I think there's a whole different aspect of how to market yourself, and I don't know if I'm the best example because I've somehow managed to go viral, so I feel like people kind of know my name already. Now I've got the PR Insider, so I feel like this sounds really big-headed, and I promise it's not coming ar I think I'm big-headed.
You're allowed to
But I
brag on here. That's why you're the guest. That's cool.
But because I've got the PR Insider, like, as a PR, I feel like the PR Insider has made me a better PR because I'm more aware of what's going on a weekly basis. So I do feel like maybe people know me a bit more for that because, I don't know, I'm in their inbox each week talking to them. So yeah, I think there's loads of different ways people can market themselves, and but I do think the main thing is just being a good PR, being a nice person, and then you end up with all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah, talk about being a nice person, because I feel like that's such an important piece of kind of client. Like, you can look at it as like client management and like business, management, but at the end of the day, it's hard to fake that kind of thing. But talk a little bit about the benefits of that you've seen, because I really agree with that, and I think that's great that you bring that up.
I don't know. I just think there's so much horrible stuff in the world. I think what's the point of being a nasty person?
Yeah, I love it. That's a great mindset.
Yeah, I don't think I ever go out unless somebody's really wronged me or done something really bad. I don't think I ever go into any situation assuming the worst of anything. So that's how I'm trying to be just a nice person.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so two things kind of came from that for me. So you also talk about red flag clients in your post, and being better at avoiding red flag clients, and it can be tough to deal with clients who have different expectations or whatever is going on in their business. They're frustrated, they're worried, whatever, and it's easy to take it out on the agency or the person working. And um, let's talk a little bit about those red flag clients, and what are some of the red flags that you can pick up on, I guess.
Yeah. I think you just raised a really good point there, is that people do work in different ways. So even though they might be a red flag to somebody, then it's not necessarily a red flag because they work in a different way. I mean, I'm very grateful that we have this freelance community where people can sort of warn each other if somebody has been quite horrible or anything like that, then it usually gets posted, and so that Slack channel just to warn other PRs that they don't go down and sort of kind of like have to suffer the same path. But for me, I mean, I did say in that post that I'm very, very grateful that I've just had really, really lovely people that I've worked with over the past year, minus one specific example. I think you can kind of tell when somebody's a bit chaotic with their like communication, with the whole like PR campaign, everything like that. When it's all a bit disjointed and you've got that kind of gut feeling that things aren't as quite as they seem, then that's when you start to kind of get those feelings of a bit of a red flag. And when it comes to payment as well, when they're a bit iffy on that and everything like that, then you can sort of tell when somebody's turning into a bit of a red flag.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like stressing me out just thinking about it because I've been in those situations before. So it sounds like it's typically earlier on is when, on like, are there onboarding kind of tips that you have to kind of pick out some of those red flags? Like, what's your plan for avoiding those?
To be fair, I mean, when a client doesn't send over a contract, that's sometimes a red flag, sometimes not, because I have had some really lovely people who don't have that in place as an agency. But when they don't have a process in place for an onboarding, then that's usually kind of a bit of a red flag because then that shows me that they're not very organized internally. But then I don't know, because that some people might not just be used to working with freelancers, they might not have that process in place. So yeah, I feel like sometimes there's not a way to pick out the red flags, because the red flags can come if, like, you haven't been able to get results that you thought you were going to be able to get, and then that sort of, like, brings out some red flags of the way that they handle that, so it's so hard and different of how to actually spot those kind of things. You can be, like, 95% way through a contract and only just realize it, so yeah, it's a difficult one.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the kind of flip side of that. And you mentioned this earlier in one of your responses about being able to work with clients that you really love and want to work with, and that being a benefit of being freelance. How do you get those clients that you want to work with?
I mean, I'm very, very grateful that one of my main clients is one that I've worked with since I started, and that just came from like my initial going freelance post, and then they messaged me, and then I've worked for them ever since. So, I mean, that's the way that I've been able to find them, just because I've worked with them for so long now that it's just a great relationship that we have together. Um, yeah, I don't that's it. I don't really know what else to say. I wish I could just choose all of the good clients, but it's re
Yeah, I mean that's fine. I guess another thing I just thought of too, what I meant to ask, talking about the red flag clients is, and this kind of loops into what you just said. It's like if you do have that one client, that like main client, right, that is maybe 50% of your income, um, and it starts to turn sour, right? Like it starts to be not a great client. You're starting to see those red flags. It can be tough to dump a client who makes up 50% of your budget. It sounds like you haven't maybe had that sort of thing, but like, how would you navigate something like that? How do you recommend people navigate something like that?
I'm gonna be honest, I'm probably not gonna be the best person to answer that because I'm not very good at, confrontation. I really don't know. I'm very grateful that I've not had to do anything like that yet, but I think honesty is always the way forward, and making sure that you're honest as to the reasons why it might not be working, and ask for honesty as well, like why it could have ended up that way. I think is always good to get feedback, even if you're kind of at the point where you wanna get rid of them. I think asking for that feedback is always important as well.
That totally makes sense. Being able to communicate. It sounds like communication is a key skill as a freelancer, especially. What are some other skills maybe that you kind of recommend people have or work towards as a freelancer to be successful?
I mean, like you said, communication is probably one of the biggest ones, because a client is relying on you, somebody that they've not like actually really hired themselves. You're not like you're a bit of a wild card for them really. You're typically being paid maybe bit more money than what they would usually pay like another PR kind of thing, or in the scale of things. You are a bit of a wild card, so having that communication, I think, is really key. Letting them know what you're up to, letting them know any struggles that you might be going through with the outreach or anything like that. I know that I typically send across like the journalists that I've been going out to, the like open rate that I've been getting, any key opens from journalists, things like that, as like a general weekly update to a lot of my clients, just so that they know what's happening and everything like that. So yeah, so I think communication is one of the really, really key points as a freelancer. Some other things I think is definitely a time management. That is something that I've obviously, as I've said at the start, I'm not very good at until I've got into this routine of using that Pomodoro technique and like the Kanban method and everything like that. But I think it's really important to have those. That's the way that you can create those boundaries of like not overworking and making sure that you're not like over servicing clients and everything like that. And I think maybe like confidence and like having the guts to do it is amazing all in one. But yeah, having the confidence to just go out there and like talk to people. I think a lot of people are scared to do it because they don't think they'll be able to like do all the new business kind of thing. But I really think that everybody's just there to help each other, and it's not as scary as it kind of seems, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's very inspiring, and I have seen a lot of that same stuff, and it sounds like, even what you're saying, like, about not being as organized or what great at time management, it's like that you can learn it, right? Like, don't think that any of this stuff is out of reach. As long as you have the will to do it, you can learn it. The business part of things, you can learn it. That yeah. So if it's something you want to do, and I mean, I recommend people connect with you on LinkedIn and X, and like I said, I'll put it in the show notes. But I'm sure you'd be happy to answer questions, and that's how we build a community, right? So let's get a little bit into the PR insider. You mentioned this earlier, like that was one of the great things about being freelance is that you could start this PR insider newsletter. What was the kind of catalyst for starting the newsletter for you?
Um, I mean, there's a lot of different factors that kind of led me to do it. I mean, the whole reason why I started it was because there's another girl called Sophie Miller, who does the Pretty Little Marketer on LinkedIn, and she was basically doing these roundups for marketing each week. And I saw them, and I started doing little like weekly LinkedIn posts. And then I think it was somebody commented saying, is this part of a new like, or it was either like, "Is this part of a newsletter, or would you do this as a newsletter?" And then I started to think about it a bit more, and I was like, "Oh, do you know what? It would actually be quite nice as a newsletter." Like, I would enjoy having something like that in my inbox on a weekly basis to see what's kind of going on. And then I kind of also felt that in the PR community, a lot of the, like, PR resources and news, like PR Week, Ad Age, all those kind of, like, creative platforms, all of them are behind, paywalls, so you can't actually do it as, like, a regular user, as a somebody who might just be starting off in the industry. They can't access these kinds of things, whereas, obviously, my resource is a free resource. I've got the whole campaign list that people can go through and see, like, how to use it for, like, brainstorms and everything like that. So, I basically wanted to create something that was a free resource that was updated on a regular basis, that anybody could use. It's from I said it within, again, I keep referring back to the LinkedIn post, but in the LinkedIn post that I want the PR Insider to be something that everybody can use, from like somebody that's still in uni doing a PR degree to like a head of PR or PR director. Like, I want it to be a community, a resource, everything like that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you mentioned this too, like for you, you were receiving the PR newsletter just to give people like who aren't familiar with it, like what is the most useful piece for you?
Oh, it's not really hard because I like all of them. But I put into the newsletter everything that I think I would value as a PR, so I'm hoping that other people find value in it. So there's loads of different sections within the PR Insider. So the first section is basically I have a tool that looks at the most talked about topics within the UK publications, and then I basically list out how many articles have been talked about for each of those things. And I can't remember who it was who said it, but somebody basically commented on that aspect of the newsletter, was like, it's quite good sometimes to get out of your bubble, because when you work on specific clients, you tend to only like think about certain topics and certain like articles. Whereas looking at that, you can kind of see the wider aspect of like what could be happening within the health industry, what could be happening with sports and everything like that. So I like to think of that as like an expansion for people. Like people can look at it and think, oh, that's been happening this week, that's been happening this week, and kind of like, I don't know, maybe spur on some extra ideas for the week the after. And then the next section is where I basically list, it's usually around 75 campaigns. And me and Grace basically divide it between reactive PR, thought leadership PR, data led PR, and then creative and campaign PR. So you can basically scroll through it and see all the different types of campaigns that have happened that week, who's done it, and where we found it.
This is Grace Burton, right, from Digital Loft.
Yeah, yeah.
Just want to give her a shout out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Massive shout out to Grace. Grace has been like my absolute life savior with this. I think I told her when we first started doing it together that it was getting to a point where I was literally up until about like 2 a.m. on a Thursday night putting it together. Whereas now she's kind of like alleviated a bit of the anxiety and the putting it all together. So yeah, she has 100% been my savior with the PR Insider.
Yeah, so then you have a section with the like major kind of events, right? Like this
Yeah.
is Donut Day and the whatever Olympics are starting.
Yeah, so, the what to look out for next week. So that again was the section just in case anybody had like, wanted any quick reactives. I know that a lot of PRs tend to do their planning in maybe like a 4-week basis, but sometimes it's nice to just see something that might catch your eye and you think, "Oh, actually, I forgot about that. I might put something together for my client next week." We usually every week we get a PR expert on the newsletter as well, and they pick out their favorite campaign from the week and they talk about why that it's their favorite campaign. And then they usually answer like a question about either their expertise or something that's going on within the PR community and give their opinion on it, which is, again, I think it's one of those things where you can sort of, PRs can see somebody else's opinion. I feel like in agencies settings, you tend to just be surrounded by what your fellow colleagues think and everything like that, whereas seeing somebody else's advice and expertise and everything like that is always really useful.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, gets back to that kind of community building we're talking about. Like that's where you find that kind of stuff. Where do you find all of your inspiration and these campaigns? Do you have set sites that you look at, or do people send you things? I think you do have a submit your campaign button right on the website.
Yeah. So yeah, there's loads of different ways. I mean, I wish more people use the submit button. We probably get maybe like 2 or 3 that get sent through that a week. And then people also send their press releases across to me, which are amazing because I love to see what people are pushing out and everything like that. So yeah, so we get a couple of those a week, but a lot of it is just a lot of manual kind of labor from Grace and I putting it together. I would say a lot of my key publications are a lot of US publications that I look through. So for creative and campaign and product, I usually go to Design Taxi, which I feel like a lot of people. Well, I don't see a lot of people talking about Design Taxi on a regular basis.
Yeah, I used to pitch them all the time when we did super creative stuff at Seed. Yeah.
I usually go on Little Black Book, and I think that is a one where people self-submit their campaigns, and it's usually from like creative agencies. So that's more like those big like out of office campaigns and everything like that. Then I go on to people.com a lot. They usually cover quite a lot of interesting, funny lifestyle kind of stories. And then there's a lot of food brands do big campaigns on like a weekly basis. So I usually go to like Delish, Eat This, Not That, Food and Wine. They always have some fab campaigns that I kind of take from there. Um, and then famous campaigns is always going to be a good one to go to.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any like favorite all-time campaigns that you've come across?
So I did think about this before, and I don't think I can put my finger on one specific campaign. But I will tell you that the brands that I love the most that come out with the best campaigns are Crocs. I feel like although Crocs have kind of died down with they were doing so many like really funny, amazing collaborations, and then they're not really doing as many anymore. On the just not ones that are being talked about a lot. Uh,
Dia's calling you out, Crocs. Let's go.
no.
Step it up.
Airbnb are smashing it at the moment. I feel like they keep doing the same things in terms of like they're just recreating like fun houses and everything like that. But I feel like
I just saw today was the Polly Pocket one.
yeah, last week was Simply Betty, like the week before that was like the Up House. Like I think it's not a simple campaign because obviously it's not simple to execute, but I think it's something that everyone's going to talk about because it's something that everybody can relate to personally. Like Polly Pocket is nostalgia. The Up thing was, like, incredible because it had all those, like, balloons on it, everything like that. So, like, each aspect that they're putting together is something that's gonna make people want to talk about it, which I just think is amazing. So, yeah, I think those 2 are probably, like, my favorite the ones that I try to find things each week of what they could be doing. It's the ones I'm always checking.
Yeah. I wrote about this on LinkedIn yesterday because I've been kind of really trying to push content creation, ideation, kind of thought um, leadership. But one of the things that I feel like a lot of agencies and digital PRs have trouble with is kind of finding a creative campaign that they like and then translating that into something that works for their clients. Being someone who's been around and seen so many great campaigns, how do you recommend people kind of extract the seed of those ideas to use on their own clients?
Um, so the thing that I think is always a key element to anything that goes viral is the emotional element, the element that makes people feel something. So like, I mean, just thinking about like the time when I went viral, like it made people angry because people were angry at the fact that somebody had said something about somebody else's like clothes. So like it got people to share it because they were angry. They wanted to put their like comment on it. And it's the same for I did a campaign once when I was at Rise at 7 called The Future Gamer, and that really annoyed loads of gamers. So all the gamers did was share it and comment on it, dislike it, everything like that. So they were actively engaging it. They were feeling an emotion. So they were actively engaging it more, which created that sort of landslide of virality, if that's even a word, of just people wanting to talk about it more and more. So I think if you can think of something that is going to engage different emotions, whether that's love, hate, makes people sad, anything like that. I mean, I think that's very obvious, but I think just thinking the way that people would react to it is always going to be that kind of like end goal. Is always going to be the way that you get something to go viral, get something to, yeah, go across all the publications.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. I definitely agree with you. And that's been kind of my biggest learning, I think, as a PR as well, is the emotion is what really sells the story. Especially these days, I feel like, you can only get so far with informational, like data led stuff. It has to have some type of, or the ones that really do well is like it can be a data led one, but it also has that little
Yeah.
emotional hook.
Yeah. Yeah, people love to share things that make them angry or love it or anything like that. Like it's when people do I think when people do data led things that is like maybe on a regional basis and then they pit the regions against each other. I feel like that always works really well because they're putting that emotion within it. They're putting that like that anger against each other and everything like that. So yeah, so I think emotion is a massive part of PR.
Yeah, totally agree. Thea, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I want to give a quick rundown. So the prinsider.com is where you can find the newsletter and subscribe. Hit the submit button there as well. Submit your campaigns if you're listening to this, because the Thea is gonna check and Grace, I'm sure, like we'll look at all of them, and it's a great way to get some exposure. Follow Thea online. It's just at Thea Chippendale for X, and she's also active on LinkedIn. Thanks so much. As a reminder, like, subscribe, leave some comments, leave a review. All that stuff helps this podcast highlight great people in the space like Thea here. So whatever you can do to spread, like I said, highly recommend subscribing to Thea's newsletter. It's a great resource for anybody in the digital PR space, in the PR space at large. So thanks so much, Thea, for joining us, and I hope to see you in the next newsletter.
Yep, thank you so much.